Let me go back to Zoom real quick. You're going to see me do the same stuff I always do, fumble around with the tech until we get on here.
It's much easier to do this from Zoom because of the delay on Facebook. It's a little distracting.
Yeah,
I feel like I'm watching a show.
We are watching the show. We're going to go straight to Facebook though. Got it live streamed. I just need to press record here. Record on to the cloud or this recorder on this computer. Admit. Here comes Terry right here.
All right.
And here's Terry.
He's gonna come on camera too.
I think he will. Doctor.
Hi guys.
Hey Terry, how are you?
I'm doing well. How you doing?
We're doing this. I'm here with Ambra right now.
Hi, Dr. Terry.
Hi Amber. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Good to hear from you.
Hey, nice to finally meet you.
Yes. Can you see us?
I can see you very well.
We can't see you. Are you jumping on video or are you doing the?
Oh, you know what? I didn't start my video.
There we go.
There you
are. We were missing that.
Okay, so I'm going to do just a quick introduction so that everybody knows. So I didn't have a bio on you, but this is Dr. Terry Gordon. Terry is a scientist physician. I met Terry. We're both on the board at Renaissance Unity. For those who don't know, Renaissance Unity is a spiritual community. It's called a church for all intents and purposes, probably tax reasons, but it's a spiritual community where like minds of all denominations that are somewhat fed up with the dogma of organized religion, and we talk about the metaphysics of the Bible. We use it as a cornerstone, but we talk about Buddhism, and there's no judgment whatsoever in this place. And I just wanted to preface the way I met Terry because I'm distrusting of a lot of things when it comes to politics, which the vaccine and COVID in general has really been made a political tool, and it's killed people who maybe should have gotten the vaccine. They did not because they were so bogged down with the political nonsense that they stepped away from it. Me personally, I and Ambra, we just went through a serious bout of COVID. And my personal take on the vaccine was not that I'm not anti-vaccine. I'm not pro-vaccine. I know that I've had vaccines my entire life. I've never gotten polio. I've never gotten measles. The things I was vaccinated for, I was never affected by. So I know that they work. I do know that this has been bogged down with the political nonsense. So my take on it was always, well, I don't ever want to be asymptomatic to the point because I'm stubborn. I won't go to a doctor unless I need to be near death for me to go to the doctor. And it's ridiculous, but that's just how I am. So I knew that if I was asymptomatic, if I took the vaccine and I got no symptoms, I'm going to spread it. Or if I had minimal symptoms, I'm going to call it a cold. I'm not going to go. That was my logic anyway. And then I got bogged down with it may have been Delta. I don't know. But the symptoms damn near killed me. I talked to you on day 6 and I didn't know that I could have possibly been gone by day 3. And when I heard in your voice, when you stopped the conversation, you said, I'm going to want to talk to you after about, so you were going to have some words with me, which I knew you would. And you just said, I just want you to know I love you. I heard it in your voice. I knew how serious it was. And I had already started to come to grips with my mortality. It felt like razor blades were ripping through my lungs. She got to catch the brunt of that, to where for me to get breath out, I had to scream at the top of my lungs just to push something out. And then I would feel a slice or a couple of slices, and then I would monitor my breath. And anyway, the point of all this is, and the whole unity, us coming together that way, is that I know people in unity who are in politics, who are in positions such as yours, who are not part of the organized nonsense. And when you offer up an opinion, I know it comes from a place of love, a place of truth. It has nothing to do with any organized establishment that's trying to push an agenda, such as it's not money related. It's not politic related. It's about, this is what I believe. And I felt that's a valuable opinion to it's not even just an opinion. You're a physician scientist your whole life. And this is what you know. This is knowledge that people don't have access to, that I believe needs to be heard. So that's how I want to preface it. If you want to go into a little bit about yourself and what we spoke about earlier.
You want me to talk about myself a bit?
And you just your foray into the business, and then about infections in general.
Okay, so I'm a native North Carolinian. I grew up here in North Carolina. Went to college down here. Left here. Went to the military for 8 years. I was in the Air Force. Left the Air Force, went back to medical school. I came back to North Carolina for medical school. And after medical school, I went to do my studies in Ann Arbor. So I was in Ann Arbor for a year. Then I was at the Mayo Clinic for 2 years. Then back to Michigan, metropolitan Detroit, where I practiced for like 35 years. So I retired a couple, 4 years ago, came back to North Carolina, and that's where I am now. So I read and study more than I ever thought I would know about pandemics and things. So I've been asked if I could share some ideas. I think I want to kind of start the conversation with just talking about infections. We'll get to viruses, but I want to talk about infections. So there are two kinds of infections that will kill you quickly. One is a bacterial infection, and the other is a viral infection. Generally, without the right immune system, 24 hours is probably as much as you can go. There are two other kinds of infections. So there are only 4 kinds of infections: bacteria, viruses, and the others are parasites and fungus or fungi. Now, let me give you quick examples because people are like, what are these big words? So fungi, almost all guys know what athlete's feet is or athlete's foot. That's a fungus. Women know what a vaginal yeast infection is. That's a fungus. Okay. Bacteria. UTI. Women can tell you all about UTIs. That's a bacteria. Unfortunately, too many guys can probably tell you what an STD is. Most of those are bad, right? Most of those are bacterial, such as gonorrhea and syphilis. Those are bacteria. Parasites, fortunately, don't affect us that much in this country, but your dog does. Your dog knows what a heartworm is. A heartworm is a parasite. Tapeworms, which infect pigs, which is why we have to cook pork to 140 degrees, is a parasite that infects pigs. And if we eat pigs then who are infected, then we can get infected. In the rest of the world, parasites are a big deal, and it causes a lot of deaths. Not so much in this country. And mostly around sanitation issues and water issues and how water's got, how people go get water. So it's the fecal, oral, so anyway, it's a sanitation problem for the most part. Now let's get to the big kahuna. Let's talk about viruses. Now, you know a lot about viruses, right? So you know what influenza is, that's a virus. You've heard of hepatitis, that's a virus. You've heard of HIV, that's a virus. So we have a lot of viruses. As a matter of fact, viruses are the most common chromosomal living thing in the world. There are millions of them.
Terry, so I want to make sure I had this correct. Now, a virus it's not alive, right? It doesn't have biomass and it can't be killed. Is that correct?
So a virus is a virus. So this is a good intro. So a virus has genetic material, just like you do, I do, bacteria do, parasites do. So they have genetic material, but they only have part of the genetic. They only have part of the machinery. So they don't have a whole cell. They have like just the genetic material. The reason that they have to infect us is because to make new viral particles to go on, they have to capture our cell, take control of the production mechanism that our cell has, make new viral particles, and then unfortunately, they kill the cell off.
That's all. It's like an alien, kind of. It's like
very
something that's
much-
not from this planet that comes in, finds a host cell and infects it. And the only way it can live and thrive is to kill our cells, correct?
Bingo,
Wow.
bingo. So here's, I'll give you a interesting little known fact that most people don't know. Viruses are so notorious that they also infect bacteria. So viruses can turn on bacteria also. That's called a bacteriophage. And they are not uncommon, they're common. So viruses are, plants have viruses, whales have viruses, everything has a virus. Anything that's living has a virus. They're very common. As a matter of fact, we probably couldn't get along without them. So those are the 4 kinds of infections, right? Okay, so bacteria, parasites, funguses or fungi, and viruses. Now, I said something provocative. I said that, we probably couldn't live, some bacteria or some viruses would kill us within 24 hours, but we don't die within 24 hours. And why is that? Well, that's because we have immune systems. Our immune systems protect us from all those nasty foreign invaders, which, by the way, are everywhere and always present around you all the time. You don't believe me? Just look at your skin, it's full of bacteria. I can swab your face right now, your nose. I can get lots of bacteria, lots of viruses, all kinds of cool things, but you're not dying. And you're not dying because you have an immune system.
Okay.
So the immune system is complicated, but I'm trying to make it simple. So the immune system is like having a house that you can see through with windows. So the elements can't get in and you can survive inside your warm house.
Mm-hmm.
If we knock the windows out, you're going to freeze to death within an hour or two, and your immune system essentially is broken apart. So immune system does nothing more than protect you. It's a shield. It protects you from those 4 infections. The immune system is composed of 2 parts, basically 2 parts. There's something called a B cell and something called a T cell. A B cell is like the frontline guys. They roam around in your bloodstream and your lymphatic system all the time looking for one of these 4 infections. When it finds it, if it recognizes it, it will go attack and try to kill it. But it struggles until then the T cells kick in, which the T cells tell the whole system, the frontline guys are struggling, turn on the big guns. And so the T cells, which are delayed by about a day, will then rev up the whole system. There's all kinds of things we have that then go out for the attack. But they will only go on the attack when it's something that they have seen before. And that's a part of the problem, because if you've not seen this thing before, it can potentially wipe you out. Okay. So obviously, one of the things that we really want to work well, especially in a viral disease, is we want really high functioning immune systems. That's our #1 line of defense. So anything that detracts from your immune system or makes it less effective is going to put you at more risk.
Let me, you made the analogy to windows, right? We're the house, we have windows, our immune system is the window, is that correct?
Yeah, so let's think of it that way. Yep. So it protects us from all that stuff out there that can harm us. Yep.
And it deflects it. If something gets in, then we need the T cells. Is that kind of how that works? If something does get in the window, now once it's in, it can't get out, right? Once we have a virus, that cell will live in our bodies forever, correct? Or
no, not necessarily. There's some viruses that stay with you forever and ever and ever. Once you get
herpes.
Yeah. So shingles, right? So shingles is notorious. Once you get shingles as a child, you have it forever.
Okay.
And one of the things that happens, unfortunately, when you get old, because your immune system is not working so good, is your immune system has been suppressing that virus and keeping it from going crazy.
Yeah.
When you get old enough, your immune system is not working good enough, it comes back to attack.
Okay. So this is off subject, but does the immune system wearing itself down? Is that why you get old? Or does the immune system wear down as the result of getting old, of entropy?
Yes, the second thing. It's like everything else. Everything works less well as you get old, right?
Okay.
Everything,
all right.
Including your immune system. So remember I was saying, okay, so anything that affects your immune system negatively puts you at greater risk for infection.
Yeah.
Okay, number one item, age. So all things being considered, Vince has a better immune system than I do because I'm 74. So
you don't look like it. Would you have guessed it?
Never.
So all things being
listen
equal,
to his advice.
So that's another talk. All things being equal, if the same virus in the same quantity shows up in my face and Vincent's face, I will die, Vince will not die. Now he may get sick, but he shouldn't die. All things being equal, just age. Okay. So what are some other ones? Cancer. Cancer will make your immune system not work so good because the system is under attack by, these crazy cells, and you're taking chemicals that are essentially destroying the immune system to try to kill the cancer. Very obese people have terrible outcomes, big risk factor. So very obese means, usually a couple hundred pounds. So anything I'd say over 250, 280, 285, they're going to have some serious immune system issues. Anybody with bad liver disease, so cirrhosis, bad lung disease, so lifelong smokers, chronic kidney disease, people on dialysis, diabetes, if it's not well controlled, really well controlled, people who've had strokes, and probably the last big one is heart disease. So if you've got congestive heart failure, your immune system's not working real good. So any of those things make you a lot more susceptible to infection. So all things being equal, if you have any of these things, then your immune system is going to be worse than mine, which is worse than Vincent's. If you have multiple of these things, and unfortunately a lot of patients in the hospital right now have multiples of these things, your likelihood of surviving goes way down. So if you're 85-year-old morbidly obese person, like my friend whose mother died yesterday of COVID, she was essentially sitting down. I mean, she was not expected to live. She actually lasted 2 weeks. So multiples of these make it multiples of worse. let me talk about, so what do we do about these things? And again, this is not a political conversation. I'm just gonna talk about what we can do about these things.
Mhm.
So obviously you want your immune system in tip-top shape. And so any of those things that you could create, like smoking too much or drinking too much or, you know, being too obese, whatever, you should try to fix those. You should try to work on those.
Now, if you work on those, will the immune system respond retroactively? Meaning, will it start to increase its function? If you're obese, you hit the diet, you hit the exercise, and you lose 100 pounds. Does your immune system respond in a retroactive fashion? Does it bounce back?
It bounces back really fast.
Okay.
Really fast. So one thing from my readings that I think is important, and Liz and I have discussed this, is it is vitamin D. So vitamin D is a vitamin. It's what we call a fat soluble vitamin. Most people in this country, especially if you live in the North, are vitamin D deficient. And if you don't believe me, just ask your doctor next time you go to do a vitamin D level, and you'll see that. And I did this, by the way, for 2 straight years. I checked every person that came into my office, and 85% were low. African Americans are even worse because the skin's darker, which is a real shame because it's really easy to fix. Vitamin D pills are over the counter, simple thing to do to replace it. And it will probably improve your immune system by some percentile, 10%, 15%, but every percent counts. So, so that's one that you can do that's easy. The others may take a little bit more effort and energy. Okay, so what can we do? Let's talk about before you get infected and what after you get infected. And now we're talking about a specific kinds of viruses. We're talking about COVID.
How many COVID viruses are there known?
So there are hundreds.
Okay.
There are 3 major ones. So this will be the third major this is the third major coronavirus epidemic. The first 2, which were not that long ago, pewtered out before they got to the United States, but they affected people in the other parts of the world. So in the Middle East, there was one called MERS. Mm-hmm. And in the Southeast, in Asia, there was one called SARS. And that's one of the reasons that Asians wear masks and always have worn masks. That's where it came from. They've gone through their epidemics before, so they know how this rolls. Those never made it over here, thank God. But this one has. Coronaviruses are very common cold viruses. So there are hundreds and hundreds of coronaviruses. And coronavirus is just a particular kind of infectious respiratory viruses. Virus.
You said cold virus. The common cold. Is that bacterial or is that virus?
Most common colds are actually viral, not bacterial.
Okay, all right.
And coronavirus is one of the major kinds.
Okay.
There's probably a good 6 that are common, and coronavirus is probably one of the most common.
Okay.
But we're talking about a particular coronavirus now, right? The epidemic is a particular kind of coronavirus. So what do you do before? There's only 3 things you can do before you get infected. Understand, first of all, that this is a respiratory virus. It spreads from my mucus cells, my mucous membranes, my mucus stuff, nose, mouth, over to yours. That's how it goes. It goes from one person to the next, nose, mouth. That's pretty much it. And it's spread mostly while we talk and breathe in someone else's space. They walk in that space and they inherit this virus.
So nose, mouth, when you touch something, can the virus live from you? You touch something, you shake a hand, and then you touch your nose 2 hours later. Can the virus live on the hand and be transmitted that way?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yes. It's not as efficient that way, but yes, you can do that.
Okay.
The most effective way is to spread through the air from my nose mouth to your nose mouth.
Okay.
Okay. So one highly effective way of not getting infected is to create distance, right? So the further I am away from you, the lower my risks are. If I isolate myself in my house all the time and not go out, I will never get COVID. It doesn't happen. I have to be in contact or nearly in contact with another person. It's very effective, but it's not very practical. And we could talk about that if you want to, but it's obviously not very practical, right? We're social animals. We have to congregate. We have to get together at some point in time.
Kids, they're germ buckets. You know, that's probably where this came from, was the kids.
Exactly.
Who were asymptomatic both times they had it.
But that's because they have really, really good immune systems.
Yeah.
Right. So the first effective way to not get infected is to create distance. The second way that's not all that effective is to have what's called a barrier. So that means putting something between your face and my face. And these days they're called masks. They're called shields, they're called goggles, all that stuff between my face and your face. Barriers, especially masks, are controversial. Not getting into that. That's one way to protect yourself from getting infected. Now, let me say something about masks, and then I'll give it back to you, Vince.
Because I was going there.
So the masks that we used to wear all the time, and most of us still have the cloth mask, whatever. Those masks are not primarily designed to protect us. Those masks are primarily designed to protect other people, right? They basically keep us from spitting on other people. N95s and KN95s, which are the ones that they're kind of talking about now, are designed to protect you and me. So it works actually both ways. So those are actually more effective, and that's because they have a tighter seal. That's basically it. They can protect me from incoming, and they can protect you from outgoing, because not much is going out and not much is coming in if it's fitted right. Okay, the third thing you can do, you want to talk about masks before I go to the third thing, please?
Yeah, so the mask thing, people are instantly, scientists, doctors, physicians, they know everything about, because this is what they've been fed through the mass media. Nobody wants to wear a mask, right?
Nope.
But here was always my take. Well, if it makes somebody else feel better when I'm in the bank, because I had this, it wasn't a rude awakening, but I went to the bank early on in this thing and I wasn't wearing a mask yet. And I had the cocky attitude. Well, if I get it, I'll pass it. It's me. I was thinking about me. Well, there was a guy who was probably in his late 70s. He may have been younger and just looked that way, but he told me, he said, you can't go in the bank without a mask on. I said, no, I'm fine. I can go in there without a mask. And I still could at that time. It hadn't been mandated. And so I went into the bank, and when I came out of the bank, I saw that he went into the bank right after me. And then I realized, I'm like, well, he's scared because he's susceptible and I could be carrying this. And who cares about my immune system? I could likely pass it to him. He was just petrified, and he should have been. So that's when I started wearing the mask more responsibly, because I was like, all right, well, if it makes somebody feel better. But the logic I had was, well, we cover our mouths when we cough, right? We're taught that when we're kids. Is that 100% effective? No, but we still do it. So, you know, if we have a pandemic and this highly infectious disease is going around, even logically, I was like, all right, well, it doesn't matter if it's an N95 or whatever, put something over your face to minimize, because that's all we're trying to do, right? We can't, there's no 100% effective manner other than staying in your house, like you said, living in a bubble, basically. So if you're going to go out and interact, well, do what you can do while, you know, while we're trying to figure this thing out. That was my take on it. And I just wanted to make that comment because there's a lot of people who watch this that are conspiracy theorists, or they just don't trust. And me, I'm not one way or the other. I try to apply logic wherever I can, and I'm wrong oftentimes, but I'm right a lot of the times. And I just think we got to get out of our own way when we start trying to act like doctors. There's so many Google doctors out there now that, look, just say you don't want to wear the damn mask and you don't care. You know what I mean? Let's not get into the logistics of it, because you don't know. And as much as I know, I still don't know. And as much as you know, you probably don't have 100% answers either. Like, everyone's trying to figure it out. So I just wanted to make that comment.
Okay. Yeah, no, I hear you. So how do you not get infected? Distance, barriers, and then the third one's vaccines. Vaccines are highly effective. I'll only say about vaccines is a comment I made to Vince today earlier. Vaccines are the most important thing that we do in medicine. There has never been anything as cheap and as highly effective as a vaccine. Life expectancy, a good part of life expectancy from the beginning of the century, which was around 45, 50 years old, to now, which is 80 years old, a lot of that is because of vaccines. There were a whole bunch of people who died of polio. There was a whole bunch of people who died of measles. There was a whole bunch of people who died of whooping cough. I can recall my grandmother telling me that one of the reasons she had so many children is because she expected some to die. So she expected them to die of one of those things. And fortunately, vaccines showed up before all my aunts and uncles died. So life expectancy has increased in large part in this country because of vaccines. In other countries, it's because of vaccines and improved sanitation. So what can you do after you're infected? And I'm not talking about in the hospital, I'm just talking about before you get to the hospital. So if you're infected, there are only 2 treatments. Excuse me. There are antibody treatments that you can receive as an outpatient, and then there are antiviral drugs that you can receive. There are 3 antibody drugs. All 3 work for Delta. Only one works for Omicron. The other 2 do not work for Omicron. Fancy name is somatrotrap. Somatramab. Sorry about that. That's the only one that works for Omicron. There are 2, soon to be, well, actually there are now 3 antiviral drugs. They work kind of okay, but you have to take them within the first 2 to 4 days, mostly by the 3rd day. If you don't take them by the 3rd day, it's too late. They won't work. We have an antiviral drug right now. It's been on the market like 40 years. It's called Tamiflu. So those are not unheard of, right? So we have antiviral drugs, and they do work if you take them early enough. So I'm gonna talk about one more thing, and then I'm gonna open it up to let Vince ask me a lot of cool questions. I'm gonna talk a little bit about how doctors think. because I think there's a little bit of confusion about how doctors think.
There's a lot of it. Because they think the same way as the politicians and big pharma and big insurance. They lump everybody into that category of, because you see what's going on. There's a lot of capitalization of this virus. That's a real thing. And people are getting confused with what's politics. And I know people that haven't taken the vaccine. I know people that have died that didn't take the vaccine because of political reasoning, and it killed them. I could have very easily been one of them. I had no idea what I was in for. And you know, you told me yourself, once I got through it, you told me you didn't think I was going to make it. I heard it in your voice when you said it. And there were 3 times where I came to grips with my mortality, where I said, I started praying for the kids and her. And I said, look, just let my family be taken care of, because like, I felt like I was going to die. I was on death's bed. I felt it. And I've been there. So I know what that feels like, to be on the cusp and have these near-death experiences. And then luckily I didn't fall into that, but people are lumping doctors, people who've given their lives and taken a Hippocratic oath and they're lumping in doctors and people that are trying to help them genuinely. And they think it's all a conspiracy, and it's not all one way or the other. It's very much, there's a health epidemic out there, and people like yourself want to help.
So, yeah, so, you know, there are no 100%, but I think most doctors feel the way that I do. You know, we're dedicated to not seeing people suffer and not seeing people die. I mean, my life is pretty straightforward and simple. If I can keep someone from suffering, I'm gonna figure out how to do that. And, you know, God knows if I can keep somebody from dying, I'm gonna do everything I can to do that. And I don't really care if they like me or don't like me, or look like me or don't look like me, or whatever. I struggle to this day. I struggle with death, and I've seen a lot of it. And yeah, it still bothers me. I mean, it still bothers me. So,
and you're a unity person. We know that we don't die, right? Like we
right.
know that
we transition.
Right, when there's you know, we go in transition, and so even with that knowledge, you don't want to see, I don't want to see anyone suffer, even though I know it's probably, suffering's good, right? Like at the end of the day, what I went through with this just now, I believe I was supposed to. I believe it was divine. I believe that for me to experience it, it gives me some clarity, because now I'm not so ambivalent. I'm not so on the fence in that this is not a flu, right? This is not a flu that I've ever experienced. I've had it. I've felt like I was on death's door before, but I've never had this. This was different. And now that I've had it, I can actually speak about it and bring you on, and you can speak about it, and maybe we can save some lives just in this, you know, instance right here. But on the unity thing, we know that it's good to suffer. And if you get through the suffering, that you can benefit from that, and you can be grateful for your pain, but it still sucks to see somebody going through it.
Right. So I'm gonna say 3 things about doctors. The first thing is, don't ever ask a doctor, is something possible? We don't like that. We hate that. The answer is always yes. Everything is possible. And we've seen a lot of it. So never, ever ask your doctor, is it possible? Ask your doctor, is it likely?
Okay.
Doctors think in terms of probability. What is the likelihood of if? So what's that mean? Given the circumstances I see in front of me, given the condition of this person, what is the likelihood of X? Right? What is the likelihood of living? What's the likelihood of dying? What's the likelihood of being injured? What is the likelihood? What's the likelihood? So if you ask a doctor, is it possible? The answer should be yes, 100%. If you ask a doctor, is it likely? You're going to get a different answer. So if you say, am I going to die? The answer is yes. If you say, is it likely that I'm going to die? The answer is probably not really, unless you do dumb things. Then yeah, the probabilities go up. So we talk about probability and likelihood, not certainty. We do not do certainty. We don't know certainty. That's number one. Number two, we strive for risk reduction. So all that means is, what is going to likely keep this person safer if they do this, what I'm asking, versus that, which I'm not asking. So let me give you like one example. If you have a blood pressure, it's 190 or 200, what's the likelihood of you having a stroke? It's high. If I can convince you to get your blood pressure down to 120, what's the likelihood of you having a stroke? It's low.
No.
It's called risk reduction. So we spend most of our lives trying to work on you and risk reduction. It's the whole reason that people wear seatbelts. It's the whole reason football players wear helmets. It's all about risk reduction, right? It's why we scream at you about smoking. It's about risk reduction. It's why we talk about condoms. It's about risk reduction. So we spend a lot of our energy on your risk reduction, because remember, I just told you the worst thing for me is to see someone suffer. Second worst thing, probably the second worst thing, is to see them die. It's actually harder to watch someone suffer than it is to literally watch someone die. But that's number two. So we do likelihoods, probabilities, we do risk reduction. The third thing, and this is the one that gets really misunderstood, is we change our minds all the time. We constantly change our minds. The general public works the opposite way, right?
Yeah.
A really good politician never changes his or her mind.
Right.
Did what they said they were going to do.
Even when they don't.
It would be dumb and stupid of me to not change my mind about how to take care of you if I get new information, right? So if I get new information that's going to take care of you better, why wouldn't I change my mind? I'm supposed to change my mind, right? So we get new information. We get thousands and thousands and thousands of pieces of medical information every day. I can clearly tell you how I took care of diabetes 20 years ago. It's not how I take care of diabetes now. How I take care of hypertension is not how I take care of hypertension now. How I coach patients is not the same as I coach patients now. How I talk about marijuana is not how I talk about marijuana now. How I could go on and on and on and on. We change our minds all the time. So what does that mean? It means that when you're looking at a doctor on TV and they say, okay, forget what I said yesterday, here's some new information. They're not being stupid. They're actually changing their mind. And they're changing their mind because they have new information and they think they have better information. They're not politicians. We got to give them a break. They don't know how to do politics. They're not very good at sweet talking people and all this stuff. We just kind of like do facts. Given this, what's the likelihood of that? How do I save my patient? How do I keep them from dying? So I think that's about it. Vince, you wanted me to talk a little bit about mutations and variants and stuff like that, or no?
Yeah.
You're going to ask me some more questions.
Well, yeah, no, I did, but I wanted to just from so for people out there that aren't God people from a quantum physics perspective, we live in a world of probability, and people do forget that. They like their constants, right? Like because we're people that work 60 hours a week, they don't want to be challenged with new information. They just want to know, what do I do? And they expect doctors to tell them what to do, and they expect it to be the truth. Even when it might be the truth right then, and when that changes, they want to sue the doctor. They want to, and look, there's some doctors that malpractice. Most don't, right? Like most don't. And most, when they get into this, and I don't know most doctors, but the ones that I know, they got into it for the right reasons. They want to save lives. They, you know what I mean? some of them that I know, they're means because people have this idea that doctors are wealthy beyond their. It's not like that. And attorneys, it's not like that. They got into it for a different reason. You know what I mean? And they have a genuine concern for their patients. So 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2, right? In the quantum physics world, it just doesn't. It equals something close to that, 99.9999%. But in terms of probabilistic quantum physics, which is we are quantum systems, there is no constant there, except for will we die? Well, in this realm, yes, we're gone, right? By all intents and purposes of the definition of being a human being, yes, we can call that a permanent. But the truth is, the only permanent thing, or the only absolute truth in the realm of phenomena, which is where we exist, is that things will change. They're not permanent. Impermanence is the only truth that we can actually know for a fact, because everything that we know from 100 years ago has changed. Humans are not the same. The world is not the same. We travel to the stars. We will get to the stars eventually. So I just want to preface what we go into next with that knowledge is like, we only know what we know today. And I don't know that there's this massive conspiracy theory, but I do know that there's money interests out there that are contorting things. And when you see a guy like Fauci come on, he's being fed information from, I don't think any of the politicians really are out there trying to stage this big control conspiracy theory. I think they're fed information. They do the best they can with what they have. Now, I think some choose to believe false information, but that's them. I think they're exception, not the exception, not the rule. And when there is no, you got to learn to trust, I guess is the thing. You got to find people you trust. And that's why I wanted to have you on here, is because I trust you. So when I know when you're giving information, it's not from a place of malintent whatsoever. It's genuine. So I wanted to go into, I don't know if we need to talk about the pathology of a virus now, because we're kind of deep in, but what's a variant? Because I heard Dr. Jane Ruby, are you familiar with her?
A little bit.
She's somewhat of a conspiracy theorist herself, but she said variants cannot affect humans. She said they would have to, because we evolved past, when our immune systems experience it, we evolved past. So she said for a variant to affect a human, it would have to devolve. Does that make any sense? Like it would have to go retroactive into an old form of itself, the virus.
No, that's not how it rolls. So viruses, remember I said, have genetic material, right? They don't have the whole deal. They only have part of it. That's why they have to take over our cells, because they only have part of what they need. Mutation, all that means is that it's like at the casino when you spin the wheel, you get a combination. You spin the wheel, you get a combination. You get a spin the wheel, you get a combination. Every once in a while, you get a combination that goes ding, 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 ding. Mm-hmm. That's exactly what viruses do. They mutate all the time. I mean, they mutate hundreds of times a week. I mean, hundreds.
Like a virus in a computer, right? It's going to figure a way eventually.
Just like a casino, they're pulling a bandit like every 5 minutes. And those three things that are lining up are their genetic material.
Okay.
So I just grabbed my keys. So think about it like keys. So our immune system is a lot, right? So you got keys. So they'll spin, and it's got these notches right here. It'll give it a check. Oh, didn't work. Spin it again. You get some new notches. Oh, almost worked. It went in. Huh. Okay, so I'm going to keep most of this. I'm just going to change one notch. That's called a mutation. We change one notch. New set of notches with one little change. Ding, 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 ding. They just broke into our immune system.
So it's found at host cell. Now it can recreate itself in every other cell.
And once it's in and it's working, then it's gonna take control, and it's gonna beat out the other guys, because now it's the better new version.
So it's recoding itself. It's recoding ourselves, right?
Absolutely.
Recoding ourselves like a computer, like a virus. You say a virus in a computer, it's the same concept.
It's recoding nonstop. Let me give you another example. The reason we do flu shots every year is because the influenza virus recodes itself in a big way. It does mutations all the time. And then it does what's called a variant. So when it does a big combination and takes hold, that's called a variant. Every year, like now, people from this country go over to Australia, where it's the opposite time of the year, and look at what the virus codes look like. How are they getting themselves together? What's infecting people over here? They predict the combination that's going to be arriving next winter. They're doing that now. So they're trying to guess what the new mutation is going to be. They come over here and they got to make it, and they got to do, like 100 billion eggs, right? So they have to infect 100 billion eggs to make vaccine. And then in the fall of 22, we'll be getting the shots that they're working on right now.
And there's no way to simulate this? Like, there's no way to simulate this through computers to simulate these codes, or?
Yeah, they do all that. They do all that. And that's why they're guessing what we call the genome. What is the virus? What is the genomic makeup of this virus? And what is it gonna, when they put everything, when it packages itself back together and comes on this side of the earth, what is it going to look like? What's the package going to look like? That package is called a variant.
Yeah. Okay.
What it does over there, what it's doing in Australia right now is called mutation. It's mutating. So it's trying these key combinations. It's trying various things to see which one breaks through. It does it every year. So influenza goes from one side of the earth to the other side of the earth, doing this over and over and over and over.
And this is what humans do as we evolve, right? Our brains are pattern recognition machines, right? And as we evolve into a new day and age, we're just different than humans of 1,000 years ago, right? It's the same thing. We're reprogramming, we're constantly evolving. And the virus it seems that the virus, correct me if I'm wrong, it operates more like a computer in that it computes faster than a human.
Yeah, that's why that's why we're behind the 8 ball on every single one of them. Every single beta, delta, omicron, we're always behind. We're gonna always be behind. So
sorry to cut you off. It's interesting.
There'll be another variant coming. So this is not going to be something that we get over and then we're done. We're going to have to learn how to manage these things and live with these things, and we will. So I'm teasing a little bit, but I think within the next 3 to 4 weeks, this is going to start settling down. I personally have predicted that by mid to late summer, this is going to be what we call endemic. Endemic means nothing more than a certain number of people get infected a day, a certain number of people get sick a day, a certain number of people die a day, and it's going to be like a steady state. It won't be, hopefully it won't be an outrageous number, because right now it's way too high. Too many people dying a day. So we need to get that down to 0, but no, we're going to get that down. If we get it down to 1,000, 2,000 a day, that would be decent.
Do you attribute that to the vaccine primarily?
No, it's attributable to the vaccine and infections, both. Okay. So when you get infected, you have antibodies, and when you get vaccinated, you develop antibodies. The antibodies the antibodies that you get from the vaccine are almost exclusively to the spike on the protein, on the virus, right? Because that's what they use to attach when they come in to attack us. And so the antibody attacks the spike so it can never attach. If they can't attach, then they can't infect your cell. If they can't infect your cell, they can't kill the cell. If they can't kill the cell, then they can't kill you.
And this comes from the T cells. The T cells provide that function.
So yes, so exactly. So the T cells are the memory cells in the immune system. They remember, they have been trained by the vaccine to look for spikes. That's basically what they've been trained to do. And whenever
They're
they
hyper-stimulated through the vaccine.
Yep, they're lying in wait. So whenever a spike shows up in the future, they will go on attack. Now, remember though, I said I'm an older guy, so my immune system is not going to rev up as well as or as fast as your immune system is going to rev up. So all things being equal, I am more susceptible to getting infected than you are, even though we're going to do the same thing. Mine are more sluggish, and
Okay.
that makes me more vulnerable. So,
Okay.
okay.
So, and my kids are superhuman. That's basically, they're superhuman. They Sophia had a cough for a day and Vinny had nothing. He played Xbox and was happy to be quarantined in his room the entire time and not be bothered by us or the school. So it was but you know, there's people that I know that will take how their kids respond to this and use that as their justification not to do what's right for themselves and their age bracket. They're you know, my parents, for example, they started wearing masks again when she saw what I was going through, and they're vaccinated. They didn't want to get vaccinated. There was no real basis for not getting vaccinated other than they don't trust the government. Don't blame them. I don't either. And so they were getting information in social media. Where you go in social media, you're going to get fed the information you want to hear. If you want to believe the earth is flat, you can get that information. It will come to you if you search it, and it's like anything else in life. You'll manifest that information into your life, and then they use it as fact. And there's some very convincing information out there that would say that that there's this. Look, I don't know if there's a massive conspiracy theory on anything. Do I think the government wants to control us? Absolutely. Will they use things to control? Yes, they will. Do I think this virus is a result of that? I don't. I think I lived through it. It's an actual virus. It damn near killed me. So the whole point of this is that, well, think about it, right? You know, think about that it is real. Let's get the conspiracy theories out of our head and do what's best for ourselves with information from people like you that we can trust and doctors that we trust. Everybody has a family physician for the most part that you can go to and say, hey, what do you think about the virus? And just from your perspective, what negatives have you seen from the virus? Because you see it daily and you get the information that we don't get.
You mean in terms of illness?
The vaccine. I meant the vaccine.
Oh, from the vaccine?
Yeah, the vaccine itself.
Yeah, so not a ton of things. So the most obvious ones are, right, you have a sore arm. Some people get fever. So some of the response to the vaccine, like fever, some people get nauseated. Some of that is your immune system turning on. So you will generally have more reaction than I will have, right?
Me,
so the things
personally?
Yeah, because your immune system is more reactive.
It'll turn quicker. Okay.
Right. So mine is old. It's old. So
you don't look your age. So does your do the numbers matter, or is it the way you take care of yourself?
No. But ultimately they matter, right? But
okay.
But how you manage to take care of yourself and how you approach life and how you stay engaged are things that matter.
Okay.
And then I hang around cool people like yourself.
Well, I would say another 74-year-old who treats himself differently and doesn't have the same mindset, they're probably going to be more susceptible than you, who
Yes.
thinks differently and takes care of yourself and has a different outlook on life. I mean, thought, we know thought manifests upon itself. So if it's constantly this is what's happening, is when people are looking at these conspiracy theories and they're choosing to believe them, not even conspiracy, just distrust, constant distrust. If you live in a state of constant distrust, you're going to manifest the worst for yourself. Like, we know that because we come from what you would call new thought, which isn't new, it's ancient, but we manifest these things, and we're watching it through social media. AI is manifesting the worst parts of what it is to be a human, and to the point where people won't even ask somebody like me. I didn't even, I know you, we're on the board at this place, and I know you're a doctor, and I didn't come until day 6 when I was like, I think I need some prayers. You know what I mean? That's when I finally went to the board and said, hey, can I get in a prayer request? And then you contacted me, because I'm also in, it's not distrust. It's that, mine was more of a, I don't want to contribute to big pharma. I don't want to contribute to big insurance. I see the game that they're playing, and I don't want to contribute, and I think I'll live through it. That was my perspective. It wasn't that, oh, it's a conspiracy, oh, it's this or it's that. It's that I just personally didn't want to contribute, and I felt that my immune system was strong enough to get through it. Little did I know that I didn't even know the difference in Delta and Omicron until I spoke with you, and you told me, well, Omicron will likely kill you, or Delta will likely kill you, Omicron not so much. And then if you get one, well, you're not exactly immune from the other. You can, you know what I mean? So I think that's valuable to speak about, because that was an eye opener for me when you gave me that information.
That's one of the questions that came in. Dr. Gordon, we have some questions in our audience right now.
Okay.
I can bring those up, and that actually is pretty pertinent to what Vince just said. Does the vaccine protect us from Omicron? Which I think you can expound upon that. There's conversations going around, I suppose, around which vaccines protect against which variants.
So, so the vaccines protect you from the worst outcomes associated with both of the viruses, right?
Not the actual viruses themselves, but it just hyperstimulates the T cells to protect you from the worst symptoms.
Yeah, so you're going to get infected. That's not the issue. As a matter of fact, I think we're all going to get infected. Mm-hmm. That's really not even the issue anymore. The issue is what happens to you after you get infected. So the vaccines protect you from the worst of it. So, and you hear the doctors all the time. They're like, if you have a vaccine, you're likely not even going to have to be hospitalized, and you're probably not going to die. Now that's true. That's true if you don't have any of those other issues. Remember, we talked about the issues. So let's assume nobody has the issues. Both of the Pfizer vaccine and the Moderna vaccine are very effective at protecting you from either of the viruses. Delta by nature is a nastier virus. Omicron by nature is a nicer virus.
More contagious, though, right?
I'm sorry?
More contagious. Omicron's more contagious, but mild.
Much more. So you remember I just made the statement, I think we're all going to get infected. Yeah. That's why. Okay. Omicron. So think of it this way. If I sneeze and you're 10 feet away and I have Omicron, you're going to catch it.
Okay.
If I have Delta, you're not.
Okay.
Delta's really infectious. I mean, it's really, really infectious. It hangs out for a long time. It hangs out on surfaces.
You mean Omicron is really infectious?
It's very infectious.
Omicron, not Delta. Delta's not as infectious, right?
Delta is not as infectious, but if you get Delta, it's more deadly.
Okay.
It's a much nastier virus. It attacks pretty much anything in your body. Omicron prefers upper airway. So Omicron pretty much likes nose and mouth and the back of your throat. It doesn't even care to hang out in your lungs, which is one place where you can get in big, big trouble.
I know. I felt it.
But Delta goes after everything. It goes after brains. It goes after
really
GI tract. Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
I think that's.
It takes out your taste sensation. It'll take out your smell sensation. It'll change your vision. It'll go after everything. Hearts are a big one. A lot of people having heart problems now, and they had mild infections. My best friend in Michigan's mother went in for a routine procedure and ended up needing to be shocked because her heart went crazy, and she just got out of a COVID infection. So she had lingering cardiac issues, probably Delta. So Delta can go after anything. So I'm going to state another fact. I think I told Vince. Being infected with Delta does not protect you from Omicron. Being infected with Omicron can protect you from Delta, partly, if not totally.
Because Delta attacks everything and Omicron is only partially. Is that correct?
Yeah, we don't know why. We don't know why. It's the variations in the structures. Somehow or another, so let me put it this way. Omicron has so many variations that it creates a better immune reaction. And so the antibodies are what we call more robust. So when another coronavirus shows up, it's pretty much toast.
Okay.
Because the antibodies are so primed. Delta's not that good at priming the antibodies. So Omicron can come along and reinfect you, and you got to go through stuff again, right? But the good news is, well, if you've been vaccinated, you're not gonna have much of anything. But if you're not, you're gonna get sick. Hopefully not die.
Okay. Oh,
right. So I think the sense of the question is, does it matter which vaccine I get? Is it going to protect me against all of the variants or not? And depending on when I got my vaccine, what should I do now?
Yeah. So Moderna actually is a stronger vaccine than Pfizer, and it was generating really high antibody levels. And so I don't know if you remember, but when they did the booster for Moderna, they cut it in half because it was too strong. Well, it wasn't too strong. It was just, they didn't need all of that to create the right amount of boost. So they were basically over boosting. So
what would be the downside to over boosting? Like what is that? What negative effects are there any?
Mostly side effects. So a lot of Moderna people were having, it depends on the person, but many Moderna people were having more fevers and chills and having to go to bed for a day. And
side effects from the vaccine.
Side effects were and again, they didn't need all of that to get to the same boost level. So to get to the 93, 94% with the boost, they didn't need all of that stuff that they had in the shot. So they took some of it out.
So the gist of the question, basically, the vaccine will protect you from all symptoms. You're going to get infected. It doesn't matter what vaccine you take. More than likely, you will be infected by one or the other. But all the vaccine does is protect you from the worst of the symptoms in any regard, right?
Yep.
No matter what you catch, whatever you catch, you're going to catch it. However you catch it, it's the vaccine just protects you from the symptoms that could kill you.
So if you have a vaccine, you get Omicron, it's probably going to look like a cold.
Okay.
If you have been vaccinated, fully vaccinated, and you get Delta, you're probably going to be out for the count for 5, 6, 7 days. You may even have to get to the hospital for 1 day.
Even with the vaccine.
Even with the vaccine.
Any vaccine, and Moderna is the strongest.
But you're not going to die. That's the difference. Okay. You're almost likely not going to die.
High probability that you won't die.
Likelihood, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Can you die? The answer is always
yes.
Yes. Okay.
Even if so, my parents who have COPD, if they were to contract it, even though they have the vaccine, they've been vaccinated. I believe they've gone through the third. And you said something interesting. There is no such thing as a booster, correct? Like this was always meant to be a 3-part vaccine.
Yes.
And I think that's misleading to people when they hear booster. And if you do any Google search, about what that is and what that means. And you can be misled in a million different directions. But when you say this is a 3-series shot and the first one stimulates the T cells, and can you break that down, how that works? Because I think that'll help answer a lot of the questions.
Yeah, so yeah, I don't use the word booster. It's fully vaccinated, so it's 3 shots. So the first shot primes your immune system. So it says there's a new foreign invader, make some antibodies. So that's how you get to like 35%, 40% effective, right? Not that great, it's okay. The T cells are like, whoa, here's a new invader. I got to remember this. The B cells barely even register at this point. So you get your second shot 3 weeks later and 4 weeks later. So 4 weeks with Moderna, 3 weeks with Pfizer. The effectiveness now goes up to like 80%, right? And now the T cells are now saying, crap, this thing is back. I know what I'm supposed to do. So now it's making some serious B cells. Remember, B cells are the first line of defense. That's the guys out there in front. So this is the first real time that you're going to have any effective amount of B cells, which is your first line of attack. That's what's like 80%. The third shot gets you to 93, 94, 95%. The T cells are like totally primed now, and they make a whole bunch of B cells. The fall off, right? So the fall off of your immune system T cells is going to be fast the first time, not too fast the second time, and they're going to last a long time the third time. If you're younger, that works better. If you're like me, I'm getting ready for my 4th shot because I know that my fall off is faster than Vince's fall off. And so I'm going to be at risk before he's at risk. So I plan to get another shot before the spring is over, right?
Now, how long does you get vaccinated? You've done 4. Do you ever have to get vaccinated again?
Probably.
On coronavirus?
Probably.
Okay.
So we don't know how this is going to play out. So it could act like influenza. You get a shot every year. So Pfizer's making a very specific the next booster, quote unquote booster, next vaccine, has a lot of Omicron specific variations in it. So it's attacking, it's writing a code that says attack all of these spots where Omicron comes into the house.
Now, sorry, go ahead.
No, so again, so if you have a compromised immune system, remember all those things we talked about that messes up your immune system? If you have any of those, you need to be getting ready for your next shot. Okay. So, like, number 1, age, right? So a person who is 80 is 900 times more likely to get infected. 900 times more likely to get infected than a person your age.
Just because they don't have that first line of defense, right? They're slower to respond.
So the immune system doesn't, remember I was talking about the uptake, how you do the first shot, it goes up, second shot, it goes up, third shot, it goes up.
Yep.
When you're older, the shots don't even go up as high to start to come down. So you don't even go as high and you come down fast. Whereas you go up higher and come down slower, which means you just protect it better and longer.
Okay.
So myself and anyone else who has one of those things that we talked about, one of those things that messes up your immune system, they've got to look at getting shots sooner and more quickly each time.
Is there another question?
I was just going to bring up, I think it's a good moment for it. Questions about after effects or side effects of the vaccine. People who notice, aside from the mild, 1 or 2 days, what are they to think about this when they see their family members reacting negatively to the vaccine? I think a lot of thought trajectories can happen from there. So people would love your advice on that.
I'm sorry.
Example
Rephrase
would
it for me a
be
little bit.
seizures, heart issues, blood clots, things like that coming up
Oh,
very
okay.
closely after having the vaccine.
So people, yeah, people have, and I've heard of this too. Like, for example, a friend of mine who has the podcast, who had Jane Ruby on, Dr. Jane Ruby, he personally, and I know somebody on here too who's asking questions. Somebody contracted lupus. Don't know if that was vaccine related, but it was right after. And then somebody that I know, the woman that it was, I believe his mother-in-law or a friend of his mother-in-law, she took the vaccine. Her lupus medication stopped working. She was going through excruciating pain, and the only thing they can attribute it to, for all intents and purposes, was the vaccine. She wound up killing herself because she couldn't take the pain. It was, it's a tragic story, and what they're saying is, when you see somebody suffer at the hands of the vaccine, or you believe it is, obviously that stokes fear. And then what have you seen as a result of the vaccine? Possibly, because we don't know really, right? But and for me too, I've heard that there's a 50-some% chance that I'm going to experience severe side effects from the vaccine because I've been infected already. Is something like that true? And these are things that we're hearing, right? And seeing. Okay. Some people are seeing these side effects.
Okay. So the worst, there are two things that clearly have happened from vaccines. The first one were these blood clots, right? And it's attached to a very specific vaccine. It's Johnson & Johnson. And it's almost exclusively in women. And it is something actually I have never seen in my career. The clot is in the brain.
Wow.
So it's called a transverse sinus thrombosis. It's a weird thing. So personally, I wouldn't take a Johnson & Johnson vaccine. If you're a male, it probably isn't. It's not. I don't think any males have had it happen to them. So that's one. The other one that is a known outcome is myocarditis. Myocarditis means inflammation of the muscle of the heart. That's in young males, almost exclusively. A few females, almost all young males, and there haven't been that many. There have probably been about 300 cases. With the new formulations of the vaccines, those have all gone away. What those are, myocarditis at least, is it's a hyperreaction to the injection. So young people, like I said earlier, when I take the vaccine, I'm out walking around that day. I mean, it's no big deal. I have nothing, right? No headache, no fever, no nothing, because my immune system is kind of crappy. I got an old immune system. Vince is likely to have a sore arm, and he may have fever and may have a couple hours of chills.
Does being infected prior affect that at all?
I'll get back to that in a second.
Okay.
So in contrast all that to a young person, so when you vaccinate a young person with the old doses, you're going to get a hyper response. So you may get something really ugly like myocarditis. Two things. None of these people died. None of these people were in the hospital more than 2 or 3 days. And there have been no apparent long-term consequences. The new formulations of the vaccines, we don't even have any more myocarditis. So those are the two that are best well known. Now, partly what people may be responding to, and this is true. Back in the days before Vince was born, there was something called the swine flu. I went through the swine flu, and it was a particularly nasty virus. People were dying at really high rates, and they developed a vaccine not quite a few, some of the people who got this vaccine developed something called Guillain-Barré syndrome. Guillain-Barré syndrome can occur most commonly after any serious viral infection, but is a neurological condition where basically your nerves stop working in the lower half of your body, mostly. And it's an inflammatory disease. Some of the people who got the swine flu shot back in the 60s got this Guillain-Barré syndrome. So some people remember that. And if they don't remember it, their parents probably remind them. So those are, but we haven't seen any Guillain-Barré. Okay. Everything else that people are associating with the vaccines may be related or may be by chance. But when you put anything out into the real world, not the test world, but when you put it out into the real world and you give hundreds of millions of doses, which we've done now, you're likely going to find a pattern if there's a real true pattern. They didn't know about, for example, in the Johnson & Johnson test, they did not see these clots. When they put it out in the real world and started giving out millions and millions and millions of doses, then they found this pattern. So if there was going to be a pattern, i.e. causing lupus or whatever, then it would create it. Now, it is likely that what happened to your friend with the lupus, that is true. When you turn on the immune system, you have to be very aware of what drugs people are on, because you can either make those drugs work too well or not work at all. In her case, she basically, it metabolized all of her drug. Now, the treatment for her would have been to give her higher drug levels, higher amounts, right? So she should have really gotten more drug and then pulled it out as the days went on. So on day 3, day 4, day 5, and then back to normal. Her doctor should have been on top of that, but anyway, that's not what happened. So you can throw. So the point is, your immune system can change temporarily and throw off how you metabolize drugs.
Is that the worst of the worst side effects? Is that that can happen? It's all based on your immune system, how it reacts. So is there anything? There's nothing inherently bad in the vaccine. A vaccine's a vaccine, correct? Or is there's nothing in there that people talk about RNA and how that's, there's this control mechanism in you know what I mean, like the Bill Gates conspiracy and all of that, and so that's a lot of what the chatter is. And can you explain a little bit? Well, I want to stay on what you're talking about, and then I want to go into RNA later.
Okay, so these vaccines are RNAs. So they're just like a virus, right? They don't have the whole package. So the virus has to take over your cell, the nucleus of your cell.
Just one cell, right?
One cell,
one whole
and
cell.
manufacture a new virus. This vaccine works the same way. So it's an RNA vaccine. So it tells your cell, I want you to make spikes.
Okay.
I'm taking over your machinery. I want you to make spikes.
So it's recoding to fight.
It's recoding to make spikes, which are not going to hurt you. But what it says to the immune system is, now the next time I see spikes attached to a virus, go attack spikes. Wherever you see spikes, go attack. That's why the second shot and the third shot are more powerful, work better, because now the system is revved up to go attack. So yes, the RNA virus, the RNA vaccine and the RNA virus takes over the cells, takes over control of the cell, and it has a little gene coding that says make spikes. That's what it does. It says make spikes, because what it's telling the immune system is, now the next time you go see spikes, go attack and kill.
Okay, that makes sense. So I mean, I mean, that's pretty cut and dry to me. So is there a likelihood now that I've had it, and I'm just curious, I'm based on the conversation we've had, I'm going to get the vaccine. It's not going to hurt me. I don't believe, but what am I looking forward to? If you've already been infected and you say, okay, well, I don't want to go through this again. Do I have the antibodies now? If we had Delta, which it sounds like we did, but there's no way for us to know, right? We don't really know. They could have been Omicron and we got the short end of the stick, or maybe we're just old and we don't know, we're older than we think. But whatever the case is, we're still, even though we've been infected, we're susceptible to the worst parts of the virus still, either variant.
Yeah, so two couple different things. If you got Delta, remember, it's not protecting you very much from Omicron.
Omicron is mild, right?
But Omicron is mild. So if you got Omicron, then it's protecting you from Delta. The problem is we don't know. We don't know which one you got.
Okay.
So what the recommendation is we know you've got antibodies. You got antibodies to a coronavirus. And right now you have higher than average levels of antibodies. I don't know two things. I don't know what the quality of those antibodies are, and I don't know how long they're going to last. I don't know how fast they're going to come down.
Okay.
Some people who get infected come down really fast, and some people don't. Generally, the sicker you are, the more potent the antibodies are that you get. But you have to get almost dead to get really powerful, strong antibodies. Or you could just go get vaccinated and get strong antibodies. So basically what basically the recommendation is go get covered. And we know you're gonna get this, you got 5 more months. We know you got a run of 5 months. You should be good to go from pretty much anything, unless there's a brand new variant coming along, you're good.
So the symptoms in me, for example, who got almost dead, my symptoms, if they were worsened, it would be because I'm already hyperstimulated and it's reacting quicker than probably most people who didn't get almost dead to what I've just been injected with. Is that correct?
Yeah, so you may have a little more fever, a little sore arm, but
Okay.
nothing horrible is going to be going on.
And what would be the benefit of jumping into the vaccine now, as opposed to waiting out 5 months and letting the my super T cells dissipate?
So we don't know how long the runoff is. There are some people who advocate that, by the way. They advocate that we can spread these out a little bit more, and that we allow the immune system to mature. Again, the problem I have, one of the first problem I have is I don't know that you're still not susceptible to reinfection.
Okay.
That's the biggest problem. And therefore, I've lost control of what's going to happen after, what might be happening after that. Okay. So if you're now susceptible to Delta, you could have pretty nasty set of events. If you are not and susceptible only to Omicron, you're probably not even going to know about it. You'll have a runny nose.
Yeah, okay.
But if you get a vaccine, we know we got 5 months. We know we got 5 months. And you're gonna be like Superman with a shield, kind of stuff. So
okay. So there's no downside really, other than some increased symptoms that might be annoying.
Yep.
Okay.
Dr. Terry, is there an easy way for a regular non-scientific person to understand the ingredients of a vaccine and whether or not it could have an adverse effect on them?
No, I can barely understand them.
Okay.
Yeah, no. So, well, that's not entirely true. We can look it up. They have different things. So some people, I was just reading about, some people have some reaction to the stuff they're mixed in. what's called polyethylene glycol. It's just basically
Does it make them magnetic? No.
No, it
Have
does
you
not
heard
make
that?
them magnetic.
No, it doesn't make you magnetic. Okay.
No, no. So you know, we actually use a lot of polyethylene glycol. It's called Miralax. It's a laxative.
Mhm.
So you know, I take it every day. another joy of being old, by the way. But it's also used as a preservative and a mixture. So I don't know all the ingredients. We call them inert. We don't know, you know, it's like
For all you
alcohol.
people out there doing street drugs, they cut street drugs with this also. So you're probably doing it every day as well.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, they're using too much fentanyl, which is really deadly.
That's,
I mean,
and
really
you know what? I know a lot of people in that culture who will speak vehemently against the vaccine. And again, I'm not pro or I'm talking to you for information, and I'm just trying to lay it out there for people, and I'll make my own decision, and I'm not going to brag about it one way or the other. It'll be what it's going to be, and I'm not going to say what it is. Me and you have talked, but you know, people can make their own decision. But I know people that will gladly accept drugs from their dealer on the street and do it frequently, but they have a problem with the vaccine, you know, and that speaks a lot to distrust and how we manifest the worst of the worst. And look, I don't trust the government. It's not the entire government. I know a lot of good people. Dave is one of the examples. Like when I talk to you from Unity, I know where the information is coming from, and I know it has the best intent for the world at large. When I speak to Dave, you know, I was just talking to a friend. You know, we've launched this movement. It's kind of launched. It's not launched yet, but it's We the People, and it's got the best interest of everybody at heart. And I was talking about Dave, and a friend of mine, he said, "Well, you can't get into that position without playing the game." I'm like, well, I kind of know someone who he did, and I know the intent, and you know, so it's very valuable, and not a lot of people have. I don't know everybody, but I know a lot of people in my circles, in the circles of old, they don't have access to people like you who, when you get into a unity mindset and you get into circles of people like that who believe that the best is possible, and then they strive to achieve that in any way, shape, or form, well, then you can trust more. Like the trust opens up, and it's the distrust. And look, the government and big pharma, big insurance, this is what We the People is. It's not anti-government, it's pro-government. It's just listen to us and take the greed out of politics. That's really all it is. It's not anti anything other than greed. And I think it's greed right now that's kind of, it controls what we see. It controls it force feeds us this information. It controls AI for the most part. And it's sad. It's sad to watch that and know that good people are losing their lives, that very well could have been saved had they had access to information that wasn't contorted in the direction of greed or distrust. That's either where you are. It's either distrust or there's a vested interest in pushing this agenda. You know what I mean? And that's just a comment, really. But it is. I know friends that will take those street drugs, cut with whatever, and take the street dealer's opinion and then speak vehemently against the vaccine. Or, you know, it's, and I know you've seen it too, and I know that doctors are tiring of people who now are scientists and physicists. They're now they're now doctors, pharmacists, because Google says this, but what they don't realize is when you're Googling something, you're being taken to a place of distrust if that's the place you exist in. So anyway, it's comment, not so much a question, but the other part of that question was because we went off on what can I experience having been infected? Oh, your question. It was the ingredients. The ingredients.
Yes.
How can they decipher?
You know, I'm gonna see if I can look up the exact ingredients of the two major ones, and then I'll give it to you so you can post it.
Okay.
I actually don't know. I do know polyethylene glycol is in one of them because there's some stories of some people who had some reactions to polyethylene glycol. But you know,
Is
That's
Johnson and
that's
Johnson still available to be taken, even though they know
yeah.
that, so
Yeah.
it's still available and they know that it creates these blood clots?
It's rare. Couple problems. It's rare. There's not enough vaccine to go around, so they still ship it out to the rest of the world. I don't think anybody in this country pretty much has taken it. It's been approved. Once a drug is approved, it's almost impossible to take it off the market.
Is it really?
It's very hard.
Wow.
But the basic, I guess the rationale, I wouldn't let any of my family members take it, but the rationale is that it's just such a rare event, and just don't give it to women and young women, and you should be fine.
So now they can advise on at least that part.
Yeah. Again,
Yeah.
probability.
So they did put what's called a black box warning on the box now.
Okay.
So they left it out there, but they put a warning on the box. Just stay away from it. That's all. A few of my family members took it, and as you know, I write a health blog every month for my family, and I advise them to switch over, and we switched everybody over.
Can you give us a link to that too, your health blog, and like anything you can give me that can guide people to what it is that, and I'm sure I have it, but if you could send it to me and I can just post those things on the page, and in this episode, so people can go to it and even ask you questions in the episode if you ever want to chime in, and
Sure.
I think it can save some lives.
So yeah, so you don't know, but I guess you do know. I've retired, but I talk to either patients or patients' families, probably 5 people a week, and 50% of it is on COVID, and most of it's from Michigan. So I have a lot of conversations about these things and other things, but it's it's too bad. It's too bad that people are. So we have this phrase in medicine called excessive death, and basically what it means is people dying unnecessarily. And we're seeing a lot of excess death. And it's, it really makes me sad because it's the antithesis of what my life is supposed to be about. So when I see people dying without reason, that makes me extremely sad. People die, sometimes I can't help it. If I give it a good shot, then I don't feel quite as bad, although it sucks. But when there's this excess death, and there's one more, there's one other danger too, and this is something people don't really appreciate, is a lot of people are dying of things not related to COVID because they can't get in the hospital and they can't get taken care of. So this is a bad time to have a big heart attack right now. This is a really bad time to have a stroke. There's no one to take care of you. They're all on the COVID ward. This is not a good time to have any kind of serious problem. If you call most hospitals right now, they're not doing elective surgeries.
Right, yeah.
Because all the nurses are over in the COVID ward. And by the way, the nurses are quitting and they're leaving and they're retiring, and the doctors are quitting and they're exhausted. And, it's pretty awful if you show up in the hospital and can be saved and die because there's nobody to take care of you.
Yeah.
And that's a possibility these days in most hospitals. So
that's the hardest part of this, and that's why I wanted to have you on, because when I spoke with you and when I experienced what I experienced, it changed. It changed to where I wasn't going to let distrust guide me, mistrust, and I think to a certain extent I was. I'm still very I can discern, right? I'm not guided by my ego and by my mistrust for certain things. I will still take in information and do my best to make a decision based on what my higher self says. So I can say confidently that that the decision I made was for me the right one. But I also could have taken up a bed for somebody who actually needed it, and all I had to do was get the vaccine and ask for proper information, and I wouldn't have been hurt by it. The vaccine's not going to kill you. It hasn't killed anybody. There may have been some side effects, like you said, but the vaccine itself is not inherently risky. So for me, when I go back, I say, well, I didn't go to the hospital. Maybe I should have in retrospect. Thank you for being virtually by the bedside and guiding me through checking the oxygen levels. And I dropped to 87 once, and then, but then I got active, and I had your number, and I was going to make that. So she was by my side for the rest of it. And women are superhuman, right? They, with this virus, they're superhuman. She got leveled pretty bad, but she didn't get what I got. And that, do you want to speak on that before we go? Just how women are superhuman, and they finally got their break with Omicron, or not with Omicron, but with coronavirus.
Yeah, so yeah, it turns out that women on the average do better than men with this virus. Not exactly sure why. It may have something to do with estrogen. We're not sure, but even women who don't have estrogen anymore do better than men. I actually read the reason several months ago, and it had to do with the way they process their T cells and B cells. They're much more efficient and effective at processing their cells. So even when they get their shots, they use their vaccine in a different and better way than we do. So ours is like slow and sluggish, and theirs kind of zips up. So women, all things being equal, the same man and the same women, the same age, same risk factors, same everything, they get the same amount of infection. Women are always going to do better than men.
She did. There was one day I got it. I didn't go to the doctor because I spoke to a pharmacist, and the pharmacist said, well, you know, it doesn't sound like it's a coronavirus or COVID. He really shouldn't have said that to me, because I took that advice, and I felt better that night. I was like, it was almost completely gone. So she had gotten it that night, and I was able to take care of her for the one night where she was really bad. And then the next day I said, you know what, I'm going to go, because I would expect my employees to go. So because I'm going to expect them to go and get tested, I better go get tested just to be sure. I don't care what this pharmacist said. I felt great. I felt not great. I felt fine. And then I went and got tested. And before the results came in, I started feeling it again. And then by the time the results came in and I realized that I had it, and probably she had it, and the kids, which we found out 2 days later when we get tested, I was floored. I was gone. And then she maintained through the rest of the thing pretty level. She never got to the level that I got, but thankfully she was, you know, I got one day where I was able to take care of her, and then the rest of the time it was her listening to me scream out oxygen. I stream in and out oxygen. I don't know what I was pushing out when I was screaming, but I had to do it to be able to take something in. It was the weirdest thing ever. And it was honestly like razor blades slicing through my chest. And I can only equate that to, you know, the virus and the various cells spreading through my lungs in real time. It was a scary thing. It was a scary thing. And viruses are scary things. Just on some AI, before we get out of here, on some AI, you know, could a human program a virus? Do we have that capability, or could we create a virus? And I'm not saying this is man-made, but I do know we manipulate them. You know what I mean? That's what we do to test. And I don't see how you can control anything with a virus. Like, you know what I mean? Like, but could it be done?
Not only could it be done, it is done.
So we do. Okay. All right. Well, that's valuable.
Yeah, no, we have a whole stockpile of virus weapons. So do the Chinese, so do the Russians, so do the Brits.
Bioengineered viruses that are weapons.
You've heard of anthrax?
Yeah. So that's
anthrax. And you heard of weaponized anthrax? That's what that means. It means that we have anthrax stockpiles that we literally can drop on people and cause pandemics.
Now, once it's out there, can it be controlled, or does it do its own thing?
No, we can't control what's out. No.
Okay, all right. That's
Anthrax is good in that once it infects people, it doesn't multiply really well, so it kind of dies off. It does its thing and then dies off. It does a couple generations and it's gone. And MERS did the same thing, which was, was the coronavirus. SARS did the same thing, it's coronavirus. But this one, SARS-CoV-2, COVID-19, was radically different. And I hate to say this, but it's kind of like a perfect virus to destroy lots of the people on the earth.
what it seems like.
It's perfectly designed. So it's transmitted most effectively from people to people, right? It's respiratory, which means we are in each other's orbits all the time, breathing. We're sociable animals. We're social. We have to like touch and do these things. It's once it gets inside a system, it's very destructive. It replicates fast. It replicates faster than immune systems can catch up. So it's like you can never catch up. The difference is the difference makers in vaccines. Ultimately, you could kill off enough people that you have enough people left with antibodies that they would be okay. But you may have to kill off billions of people.
Is that what herd immunity?
That would be herd immunity.
Okay.
So essentially, basically the calculations I've been reading is we're now, because the vaccine uptake has been so slow, we now can't do herd immunity. It's not possible to do herd immunity. You have to do herd immunity. You have to do herd and something. And what we're counting on is herd and vaccines. The problem though is we got to hustle these vaccines out to the rest of the world, because if we don't, they're going to just circulate back around. Remember the whole Australia thing? They'll come back. And that's where Omicron came from. It came from, well, they said Africa, but it actually came from Europe. People don't know this, but it actually came from Europe, but the people in Africa found it and typed it and told us, hey, look out, this thing is coming. And we said, oh, look what the Africans sent. Well, it wasn't Africans. It was Northern Europeans. We think around Belgium, Amsterdam, somewhere up there. So if we don't vaccinate our people, we can't herd our way out of this. We have to do herd plus vaccine. And we got to get over there and vaccinate the rest of the world, or this is just going to keep these mutations just going to keep coming. It's going to keep coming. We lucked out this time because we got an effective vaccine. By the way, the vaccine wasn't hustled out. This vaccine, actually, a friend of mine was working on it. This vaccine has been worked on for 10 or 12 years. They were getting ready. They were working on something similar to this, and they just transitioned. So the mRNA technology was being worked on for cancer, actually. That's what they had been working on it for.
That's what I read.
And then they pivoted. They pivoted because they found that they said, this is going to be a real moneymaker. Yeah. Let's use this in a different way. And that's literally how Moderna, especially Moderna, Moderna was, by the way, was a brand new company, right? They literally pivoted within 6 months. It's actually a really good, interesting story. But it's two people, a man and a woman in Germany, and they were working on this cancer vaccine, and they pivoted within 2 weeks and started doing studies on their vaccine and the original coronavirus.
I'm going to read more on that because that is real interesting. Because if you start to know the backstory of where these things come from, rather than what you're being force fed by social media and your distrust for the government and the people you probably should distrust, if you can bypass that and get to the core of some of these things, then you start to realize, well, we know that coronavirus is, if you know anything about viruses, and I'll nerd out on things when I'm affected, or I feel like I might be affected, I want to know all the information. Like me, I want to know pathology. I would bore the hell out of everybody sitting here talking to you about, everything. What's the origin of the virus? You know what I mean? I like that. So this Moderna thing, I'm going to dig into because I didn't know that, and that's very interesting. But so the one size fits all method that's been pushed by the lotteries that are had, and now I don't see the value there other than vaccinate. I think there's a money push, but I don't think it's all bad. I don't think it's, I think if you have an opportunity to make money, we're a capitalist society, you're going to make it. You're going to use what you can, the information you have, you're going to push this thing. When it comes to children, because I'm really on the fence about whether or not I've never gotten a flu vaccine. I probably never will. It's just I can take the flu, maybe when I'm older, maybe I get affected in a way to where I feel like I have to. My kids have never had it. I'm apprehensive to put anything in their bodies, anything that goes for aspirin, whatever. If I don't need to take it, then I don't want to take it. And for the kids, what's your opinion on vaccinating children that I've seen it with my own eyes 2 times they've had this, and this last time was probably Delta, and they laughed it off. What's your opinion on that? Vaccinating them?
My first thought is I don't feel the sense of urgency when I'm talking to a person my age. I have a whole different sense of urgency. It's actually an emergency.
Yeah. Right.
If I'm talking to a 5-year-old, a 7-year-old, 8-year-old, I don't feel a sense of urgency. I would say, you probably should. You already take 22 vaccines, so you go to school. So hell, one more. Who cares? Can't hurt.
Well, that's valuable. What you just said can't hurt. Yeah. Right.
It can't hurt. A lot of children end up in the hospital, but what people don't appreciate is a lot of children end up in the hospital this time of year anyway with viral infections. So they got croup and respiratory syncytial virus, which is a big deal among kids. So there are a lot of kids right now in the hospital on ventilators with COVID.
That's our RSV, right? Is what you just mentioned?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So RSV is very common, and a lot of kids end up having a lot of problems breathing and whatever. Most of them don't die, right? But they can get pretty sick. And if you don't believe me, just call the local pediatric hospital. They'll tell you the hospital's full with COVID kids. Now, The question is, would those kids not have to go through that hell, right? Because one of my things in life is not seeing people suffer. Would they not have to go through hell if they took the virus? And what's the likelihood, right? What's the probability that they're going to have to go through that hell if you don't vaccinate? And that's the dice you're rolling. Are my children likely to get this thing? And remember,
are they taking a bed from a kid with cancer, right? That's something to think about.
Oh yeah, they're filling up the hospital. Yeah, absolutely. So, I just had a thought. So, it's escaping me. So these kids are in the hospital with this thing. Are my children more likely to are they more susceptible to this than any other child? So if your child has any kind of immune issue, then I would say, yeah, you need to get them vaccinated. Okay. And a lot of kids with immune issues, right? So a kid has a heart condition, yep, you really need to get your kid vaccinated. If your kid is immunosuppressed because they have diabetes, yep, you really need to get your kid vaccinated. So if they have any of those things that messes up their immune system already, they have cancer, you really need to get your kid vaccinated. If they don't have those things, then you got to ask the same question. What's the likelihood of them catching this if they don't get vaccinated? And if they catch it, are they likely to have a good outcome or a not good outcome? Remember, my thesis is we're all getting infected. So they're going to get infected. the dice you roll is they're not likely to get seriously ill. And that's not an unreasonable decision, because that's true. They're not likely to get seriously ill. If you ask me, can they get seriously ill? The answer is always
Yes.
yes. Yes, they can. Yeah.
It seems like it really comes down to the human interest stories and the close to home stories that we hear. They're the 1 in a million or 1 in a billion story. When you talk about the probability, you're always making those decisions based off of the other 999.99 of the million or billion people.
Right. So we trust what we know and what we've experienced. That you really trust. So if you haven't unfortunately, if you haven't personally experienced it, you may not have the same level of effect, right? So this is cognition around coronavirus is much different than it was 2 weeks ago.
Yep. Completely different.
Because he now has a new level of awareness. So he trusts what he knows to have happened. Not what I'm saying, not what Fauci's saying. He knows this could have gone south really badly.
Yep. Yeah. And again, thank you for sitting bedside virtually when I know you wanted to hand it to me for not doing what was, advised in the first place. And I appreciate that.
So can I tell what I told you, Vincent?
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
So I said, okay, just chill out. We got to get this guy through this. So I said, Vincent, you got to go do some things. Just do these things and call me back. And they did. They were really right on it. Amber was just perfect. She ran out and got all the supplies. So they gave me all this information. I'm like, okay, so if this happens, then we're going to do this. If this happens, we're going to do this. So we were pretty lined up. But as Vince described to me what was going on with him, I said to myself, and I've told him since, I said, I've never said this before. I had never said this to you before because I don't go around saying stuff like this. But I said, I love you because I didn't want my last words to him to be something not positive and not right. And I thought that there was a reasonably high likelihood that he was not going to get through this. So I was back in my likelihood probability thing. He doesn't know, but I didn't sleep that well because I was waiting for the call.
I didn't call you that night either when I went to 87, which I probably should have, but I thought, let me just walk around and see what happens. And it went back up. Yeah,
because one of the things he's supposed to do is he's supposed to call me if it drops below. But anyway, so anyway, once we transitioned through all this, I warned him and I said, Vince, I'm gonna give you shit at the end. I'm just telling you, I'm gonna give you a hard time. and the magic thing was the booster, right?
Yeah.
Have the booster, like, why the F didn't you get the booster? So we had a heart-to-heart. It wasn't a nasty heart-to-heart, but we had a heart-to-heart, and we talked about what's reasonable to do at this point. What's next? How do you save yourself from injury and morbidity and potential mortality? And let's not make this harder than it needs to be. It's already bad enough. So let's make this easy for you. And the other thing I said to him, and I'll just share this with everyone, is I think Vincent is way too important to be wasted. And I told him that. I think there are too many people for whom he is critical and important. And he, in his own way, is a doctor and taking care of a lot of souls. And so we need him to be present and really present. And I don't want him being something in this whole realm of excess mortality that I could not do anything about. So I'm glad my brother's here. He's good.
And I appreciate that. I heard it in your voice when you said, when you just stopped everything and you said, I love you. I was like, oh shit, he thinks I'm going to die. Dr. Gordon thinks I'm going to die. He doesn't think I'm going to make it. Like I knew it because your voice changed and we know energy. And I felt that. And I said, I better do what he says. And after the 87, I went back up because you said, call you, you'll walk me around the house. And so I figured I'd take that first one on myself. And it went back up, and then it stayed at about 90 for the bulk of the time. And then there was one day where where all of a sudden I was fine. I still had some breathing problems and whatever, and minor now, very minor breathing problems, but for the most part, it's gone. I appreciate everything you said, and you know, I joke a lot about death. Because I don't take it as seriously as I think that's how I find light in it, and I've come close to death so many times to where my ego is flawed. It says, okay, well, you can push further now, and that's not. I know that's always been a flaw of mine, in that my metric for how I got through life was, well, I didn't die. You know what I mean? That's not healthy. That's not a healthy way to live. And in the conversation with you and what I went through, I'm at a different stage in life now to where I took everything you said to heart. And I said, so how do I offset the probability in a way that's not damaging to me? Well, you know, there's a high probability that if I get the virus, well, I'm not going to take up a bed for somebody that needs it. And Bill Gates will not be controlling me anytime soon. There's nothing in that's going to allow Bill Gates or any programmer out there to control me. So what the hell, right? But at the same time, there's somebody like you that I can lean on for information and that I trust. And I'm grateful for you coming on, and that I was able to give this gift that I have to be able to speak with you and lean on your information and your heart and pass it on to other people that don't have that. There's a lot of people on here tonight that benefited from our conversation and will benefit from anything that you're able to feed me that we can put on here. It probably saves some lives. So this is no small thing that I think we did tonight. I think this is very valuable. And I had taken a hiatus from the show just because I wasn't feeling inspired. This is the first one back because I was inspired to get back out there, and I'm grateful for you coming on and for your time. And I guarantee you saved some lives tonight. I guarantee you. So
thank you. I appreciate you inviting me.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I can't wait to see you. I can't wait to get to another board meeting that's in person and we actually get to see each other and hug it out. But I appreciate it. For all intents and purposes, this is Dr. Gordon. Remember that name, and I'll be sharing information. And have a great night, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you both. Appreciate it. Have a good night and have a good life. Get that shot on Saturday, and then we're good.
Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thank
Love
you,
you
Terry.
both.
I'll talk to you soon. Love you.